Uninkables. Hey, so I wanted to make a video on how I make foiled mats. Pretty much I saw somebody with a foiled mat at a tournament and I was like, I can probably make that. I feel like that is my curse where I see anything that's a craft and I'm like, I could probably do that, maybe for cheaper, maybe not. And so this is kind of the method that I've figured out. I will show an example with the Elsa mat. Obviously you can do other mats and you can do non-Lorcana mats, whatever you prefer. So I'll take a picture of the mat and then crop it so that it's as close to the mat as I can get it and then upload it to Procreate. And then within Procreate, I will create several layers for each color that I want and basically just trace out what I want the foil design to look like. Sometimes I use contrasting colors to be able to see it a little bit better, and other times I'll use kind of a color similar to what I want the final product to be. And then when you remove the basic background mat, you'll get this, and that's what your foiling will be. I usually export this one layer at a time because it seems to be easier that way. Otherwise, if I try to do multiple colors in Cricut, it gets a little confused. So usually I'll airdrop these from my iPad onto my MacBook. These images on my MacBook, I will then upload them into Cricut Design Space. So within Cricut Design Space, you can see that I have multiple mats that I've worked on. And so I will open up the Elsa one. Let's pretend I didn't already upload everything. So I will go into this upload button on the side and click upload image. Usually first I'll upload the image of the actual mat first before I do all the layers. This is kind of a new process that I've decided on because I find that if I upload the image of the mat, I can just size the mat and then size all of the layers onto that mat that's already pre-sized to what the actual mat size is. And so the mat I do as a flat graphic, and it basically uploads as just a picture, which is super easy. So once this has been uploaded, I will then size this image because I cropped it before to be basically just the mat. I can size it to the actual size of the mat, and the Disney Lorcana playmats are 13.5 inches by 24. So based on like how much space there is on the edge of my picture, I can decide whether because it's never perfect, so I can decide kind of whether I want it to be closer to, if the width is closer to the actual size or the height. And then I will go upload image, and then I'll pick one of the layers that I've exported, and then apply that as a single layer. Theoretically, you could do it as multiple layers with different colors, but I feel like the Cricut struggles with that. And so because my mat picture is already sized, then it's easier for me to size the layers on top and just kind of like directly put it on top to make sure that's where I want it to be. I used to draw like lines on the outside edge to help with this process, but since then I've kind of omitted that step because you have to cut those out anyways. And then I just size it so that it lines up well. And then I pull it off the mat, and then I use the slice function to make it into smaller pieces because the Cricut has a max size that it can cut of 12 inches wide. You can go 12 to 24 is like your max size. And since the actual playmat is like a 13.5, I slice it. So I make basically a shape, and then I overlap the two shapes, and then I click the slice button, and then that separates that little portion that was in the shape from my bigger picture. And so I do that with like sections of the picture. So once I've done all my layers and I've broken up all my layers into smaller pieces, I will then click make, and then it will sort by colors. And I adjust the color of each section so that it's the same colors are in the same section. So these are all the pieces that I want to print gray or blue or darker blue. And then you can kind of reorganize them how you want on the actual mat. Because you're printing a heat transfer, you do want to make sure that all of your images are mirrored. Otherwise, they're not going to work. Luckily, on the Cricut Design Space, it now will automatically mirror if you click iron on, and it'll give you that little red notification. If you hover over it, you can kind of see what it looks like. And then you do the Cricut things and Cricut. Once it's cut your image, you can basically weed out all the parts that you don't want. And then you apply it like any heat transfer. You put it on the mat, you iron it on. Just be careful of which layers you want to do first. And then, ta-da, the mat is done.